Good evening, everybody. Welcome to BCS Edinburgh branch webinar, Redesigning Everything. My name is Mike Hurst from BCS Edinburgh branch, and I'll be handling the technical side of this meeting. Before we start, a quick note on GoToWebinar for those who are not familiar with the system. Depending on whether you are running the desktop app or in browser, you'll see something like the panel on the left or the browser page on the right. By default, you are muted. You can click on the mic icon labeled A above to unmute yourself, though we need to allow that first. The hand icon labeled B above will notify us that you are requiring attention. You can ask questions by typing your question into the question panel. If you are having technical issues during the session, then please use the question panel and I'll try to help. To allow smooth running of the session, we'll take questions at the end of the presentation. Either type questions in the question panel or raise your hand and we'll unmute you for you to ask your question. We are recording this talk and this will be available on our BCS Edinburgh branch website and on the BCS YouTube channel. So I'll now switch presenters to Alberto Brandolini. While we're doing that, I'll hand over Seb Rose to introduce our speaker for this evening.
Good evening. So tonight I'm really happy that my old colleague and friend Alberto has agreed to speak at this meeting. I think I first met Alberto at an XP conference in Rome, and I have a memory of him taking us to a restaurant and sitting outdoors with people milling all around us and eating way too much food, and him recommending the wine. So that was a great way to start a professional relationship, and over the years he's helped me a lot with speaking at conferences, but also his seminal work on EventStorming, which might get mentioned this evening, and also his wonderful Brandolini's Law, which you can look up later on Wikipedia. So he may be the first guest speaker we've had at the BCS who has a law named after him. So without further ado, a man who created a law, let's also hear how we can redesign everything. Alberto Brandolini.
Hello, thank you very much. My pleasure being here. And so, yes, this is me from my office in Italy during lockdown. All of these things is actually real, but I will start presenting. So 2 seconds of making sure I can do it on GoToWebinar, and looks like you should see my presentation right now. So this talk about it's going to be about event storming, but also the challenges of having to redesign everything, sometimes using event storming, sometimes using other things. I mean, there's a lot of things in here. It's somehow the summary of this entire year. But first, a little introduction about me. Yes, I invented event storming. Yes, I smell bullshit. The other thing I do, I run this company, ASYNCHRONOUS, and my relationship with the IT profession, I started coding, around Christmas 1982. I don't get paid for coding. I just provide consulting and warning. I still do coding, but that's not the thing that I get paid for. I run a company. I have a little bit of entrepreneur mindset, a little bit of agile and lean mindset, a lot of domain-driven design, a lot of complexity, and a lot of stickies in my office. Yes, that's more or less me. Actually, this picture is a very younger me. And the story about event storming actually started 8 years ago now. It's just like I posted this thing on my old blog, and it started everything. I just wrote this article about this different way of exploring system and modeling, and started to make the ball rolling. And well, in 2 years later, I started writing a book about it. It really felt like the right thing to do. The book's not finished yet, but still, it's still getting in the top 10 pages of LinkPub and been unfinished book. So, well, that's something. Maybe I don't finish it just because I want to be the only one keeping this record. Like the bestseller in the unfinished book categories. The finished book category is so huge. But let's get into the idea of EventStorming. There's already something visible in the cover, but the idea is relatively simple. It's put all the key people in the same room and have them build an event-based model of the whole business, end to end. Well, now let's figure out what it might be. Maybe a picture is better. And that's more or less what EventStorming used to be. Really putting a lot of people in the same room. I mean, this is a small workshop. In other bigger workshop, I had also 35 people in the same room, actually kind of very large one. And I have colleagues getting into numbers like 70, 80 people. Well, normally something like 20 to 30 people, because we want to see the entire business of a business line end to end. So from strategy, marketing, inception, whatever is needed, sales, negotiation, delivery, billing, support, and everything that could happen. All the things needed to understand what is vital for the company and the relationship between the parts. And of course, we can get in smaller sizes and so on. Not only one recipe, actually I have three main recipes. The big picture is the most glamorous format. Many people, business representatives, software representatives, we try to understand, to make sense of the whole system. And we use it for different goals, like corporate retrospective, organization reboot, scale up that want to rebuild the entire system, project kickoffs, startups that want to design their business from scratch. Or we have a smaller format, which is called process modeling, a little bit more sophisticated in the grammar, a little bit more structured. We still have a collaboration between business and IT people. We are cooperating to design a process together. And the third format, which is something like an expansion or a refinement of the process modeling, just gets really, really close to software. So we can see things like commands, aggregates in DDD lingo, events, policies, and read models. So we are talking something which is really, really close to software. The good thing of these three formats is that they can blend together in every single step. You can still have an active conversation between the business people and the software people, because the language is not creating any mismatch. We're not talking about database tables. We're not talking about XMLs, JSON, or other formats. We are talking about the business events and making sense about the value which is implicit or explicit in any step. And this is giving a lot of information about designing the best possible software for this. So why should I run an EventStorming in my organization, in my team, in my company? There's many reasons. Reason number one, this is by far, according to the other things that I have seen, the approach that gives the best learning for the software developers, and surprise, also for the business person. It was born with the idea of we software people need to understand the business before writing the software for it. It turns out that the business people were enjoying the process because they never saw the business with that much clarity. So a lot of learning before starting a project, before starting a redesign. What's wrong with learning? No drawbacks, no consequences. It's just like, what could go wrong? You learn. Learning is only good. So that was already great by itself, but it's not the only thing. We can also get better team engagement. One of the things that was really, really good was the moment we built this model together, we made sense of all the sticky notes from beginning to end, telling the story of everything that happens in the system, looking for the cause and effect relationship, the boundaries, the people involved, and so on. In the process of doing this, we actually met the actual stakeholders. We understood their needs, their frictions, their contradiction, everything that was behind it, but we had a human touch. I need to write this software for this person and this person that have real problems, and maybe if I solve this problem, well, I could make something good. And especially when working in some projects in healthcare, it actually felt great to have a good reason to write this software. There's somebody that we can really help, or, well, there's some business that could be made streamlined. There's some time that we could get back to user, or maybe some efficiency somewhere. I mean, we like solving problem, we like understanding problem, and this is just going in this direction. Also, politically, if you ever been doing software in a large organization, well, you know the software projects do not fail because of technology. They fail for political reasons, or impediment that you didn't know at the beginning, or department that you didn't even know they existed. Banks, anyone. That's what you can expect. By running a workshop like this, I need to understand the business end to end. It's just like running a walking skeleton at the software level, just you're running it at the political level. I need to know all the potential troublemakers inside the organization together in the same room before even writing a single line of code. Sounds like good, because that's exactly what might be the major blocker of the flow. And highlighting bounded context. If you're going microservices, well, deriving bounded context from the interaction between the people is actually relatively straightforward. It's just building the model is one action, observing the people is giving you so much layers of information that is making designing system boundaries like a relatively trivial activity. It just takes, well, 20 minutes drawing the lines, understanding the boundaries, the key events, and yes, to me feels like done. Maybe one might discover something later on, but it's not a major thing anymore. Everything is visible. We just never looked at it because we're reading documentation, inferring this information from second-hand and proxy places. You just see the people. The people are putting themselves in a chain, and this is just like taking ownership of different portions of the territory. It becomes really, really obvious. And that's great if you're getting into microservices. Same goes for event-driven architectures. Most of these events that we're talking about, they have a counterpart at the event-driven level, but we start discussing the syntax, the semantics, the information that could be there, who might be the people and the teams and the software interested in listening at given events. All of this become visible in a physical support, and we can just solve a lot of problems, yeah, in advance, because we see that this event is really important for 3, 4, 5 departments with little differences during the workshop before writing code. That's great. I will remember this. Great. Other reasons, well, you might just enjoy being in a room full of colors, like this poor young version of me here. Like, that's what you might look. You see the vertical boundaries. It might look like, yeah, possible bounded context. You might see that there are problems highlighted and other things. There's a lot of layers of information happening. But this young version of me also had a strong opinion. And what is the best tool for remote EventStorming? A plane ticket. That tweet was 2018, and that was a pretty bold statement. Then, of course, 2020 arrived. Surprise. So what happened to EventStorming? Put all the key people in the same room. Well, it's now forbidden. It's actually illegal. Might even go to jail if I try. Of course, it's my professional activity, so it's just not happening. So putting all these people in the same room, they should be wearing masks, not enough social distance. So this is forbidden too. My opinion, well, this is just dumb. So yes, this is not happening. Well, I had to change my stance for many reasons, because yeah, waiting for the pandemic to happen was not a viable business strategy. So since I actually run a company which is mostly going on public training, and they stopped, and private trainings too, and they stopped because of the pandemic. I was consulting, offering workshop and mentoring, and it stopped too. And we were organizing events, not only meetup, but also little conferences. We were planning to get big, stopped. Luckily, we had the software development project going on. Oh yes, great entrepreneur. I just split my bets in a wiser way, but this project was on one of the industry that were most hit by the pandemic, so it was not stopped, but budget reduced 80%, more or less. That was the situation. So this actually left me with something around 3-4% of the viable business, exactly. So really, really close to being dead. And all I got at that time, I'm talking about March last year, was free time, because we canceled the workshop, we canceled everything that we had in play. We spent the first month reimbursing tickets, and yes, what do we do? But I had a mission. So 1 year ago, I actually felt like this. Remember, the moment Michael Jordan started playing baseball, kind of weird, because this was clearly not the favorite sport, but good reason to make a change. At the same time, I was feeling like I will have to play the new game, and I will have to be good at it, because I cannot just wait for this pandemic to happen. But please, I'm not that good. This is still a metaphor. It just conveyed the idea. So I'm not comparing myself to Michael. And so we get into this mood, like time to experiment. We gotta try basically everything that we had in our mind, because, well, we had free time, we had new ideas, resources, we had the need to try something. Also, we had also the urgency to prove that we actually understood something reading books like Anti-Fragile. While that was a challenge, the pandemic was actually hitting us. Yes, we were preaching anti-fragility to our customers. Well, what do we do now? We have to prove that we are anti-fragile too, that we can get stronger in this scenario. So one of the first things that I wrote in this messy moment was I actually wrote 2 articles, because it was impossible for me to write one. The first article was kind of half empty, like, and I was describing EventStorming in COVID times, and the other thing was about remote EventStorming. Now, if I think I flipped the 2 titles, because the idea was, well, actually, you cannot really do EventStorming remotely. You can do something else remotely. But on the other hand, it's a different game. Just you cannot compare the remote EventStorming to the real EventStorming, because the real EventStorming is simply not possible. Not for you, not for your competitors. 2020 is a different year. We need to play a different game, and we need to compare with what this is available. So what can we do for this year? Well, there's a lot of things that we can do, but this was just the beginning of the experiment. And also, we were so this was my psychology at that time. I was completely torn apart. Somebody maybe remembers this movie. I was torn apart between feeling happy about, oh, we have new opportunities, and feeling sad about, yes, but in presence was a lot better. On the other hand, we had a fantastic new blog layout. I was so happy to have a new blog anyway, just we could show that we had something getting out. So after all these experiments, trying on ourselves, trying with some customer that still asked for our help, we were just like saying, look, we are still redesigning the system, so you might get very early prototype version of what you're doing. If you're ready for the challenge, that is fine, but we have a lot of half proven stuff, a lot of honesty during this conversation. This thing was actually going away, but we needed to understand what were the ingredients to make it work, to try to replace the recipe. So inviting the right people, unlimited modeling space, service, markers, stickies, oxygen, and so on, and the entire business with domain events on a timeline. And there was always, even in the physical world, a big that will never work in my organization, and that is not going away. That was the thing we were looking at. Usually this is 10 to 12, sometimes 15 meters long. And this is a board, a paper roll on the wall that contains, well, hundreds of sticky notes, but the events are the building blocks of our storytelling. That's the first thing that we look at. And then during the conversation, we start visualizing the hotspot. Which are the things that trigger an extra conversation, a friction, like this never worked, this was never delivered on time, we always have troubles with this, Albert is always late, whatever you can put. And then the conversation goes on, you start seeing something more important, boundaries starts getting in place, maybe between phases, maybe between parallel swim lanes. We start seeing like, okay, it's not a mess. There's something like a structure emerging from these chaos. And Then we start visualizing this system, whatever we interact with. Actually, we have a funny definition, which is whatever we can blame. And there might be external system like software, or external entities like World Tax Agency, European Community, the Parliament, the GDPR, and then of course COVID and pandemic. We also had bad luck as an external system in some scenario. We want to see everything. Unlimited modeling space means unlimited level of detail. If somebody has an idea, we find a corner for this. What else? We visualize the people doing the things together with the systems. We visualize then also ideas to improve the system after understanding that this is the flow. Can you do something better for this? Do you have any proposal? And then usually these blue arrows, we end up voting on the most important problem or the most promising ideas. And then in one day, we have commitment about what to do next. It is clear we explored everything. This single problem is the most important one to solve. So maybe tomorrow we're going to model a solution for that. That was the main idea. So in general, this looked like a giant-sized puzzle. The notation was designed for easy onboarding. I never gave all the notation on the first shot. We always start only with the events, and then we start adding one more color and then one more color. So it is actually designed for continuous onboarding. It starts like a chaotic mess, and then it becomes something more structured, and then it has sense. But the other thing is the group of people is giving order on top of this mess, is actually taking ownership of this mess. You learn by ordering this structure, you gain control, you gain confidence. This mess is not controlling you, you are controlling this mess. We progressively inject precision with more precise notation, but solving the puzzle is actually a great way to trigger deeper learning. Reading documentation is not a great way for learning. Solving the puzzle, sorting out things, realizing the dependencies and the complication and the friction, this puts you in charge and give you a deeper learning, because that's a puzzle, that's a collective game, and is also triggering interesting conversation. The value for this, in doing this in person, we actually, by not doing it in person anymore, we realized even more what was the thing that we were losing. The multiple parallel conversation are going away. You cannot have parallel conversation on Zoom. I mean, you can have breakout rooms, but then open the breakout room to say something to one person. It doesn't work like this. The stickies and markers were low friction tools. Well, Zoom is not a low friction tool. Miro is not a low friction tool. That's another thing that was interesting in doing it in person that we lost is the commitment. So a workshop, 30 people, only one day, you feel like you gotta finish for 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever is the time you close, but we gotta finish and then maybe have a beer together or go home. But we are close in the same room. We get this escape room feeling. We gotta collaborate to finish this so that we can go home. You don't have this when you're doing it remotely. You're already home. You just say like, guys, it's late. I'm gonna switch off Zoom, sorry. And there is no commitment to finish. We are losing a lot of these team building side effects and the emerging time management. Like I see in the afternoon, we might start slowly, then people suddenly start looking at the clock and oh shit, we are never gonna finish by 5 o'clock. Well, let's just skip this area, no troubles in this area. Can we just focus on that one? This is not happening that much. And this third time approach is actually the rugby third time. That's one thing that I'm missing a lot. Like a great source of information in the workshop was not happening during the workshop. Like we finished the workshop, everybody in the same room, it's time to go home, but some people is not going home. Well, let's get out for a beer and a lot of conversation. And then you learn all the backstage story, all the reason why the problem was there, and the learning continues, and a lot of contamination is happening. And this has been lost incredibly in remote performance. Dark side of remote is just basically the opposite. There's a single, sometimes annoying conversation. Well, have you ever been in a room, somebody with a bad microphone? I mean, you feel like this person is annoying. This person is a decent human being, just with a bad microphone, but your brain feels like, oh, can you please shut up? It's not you, it's your microphone. And extra friction for the tech stack. Also lower commitment because, well, come on, it's time. I have another meeting, sorry. And not in building. And sometimes also, yeah, the opposite. And Zoom fatigue. We need a smaller slot, so we cannot do 1 day full immersion. It's still doable. It is tiring in the real life, but it is doable. I cannot ask anybody to be the full day in a Zoom meeting. Well, we tried it. I completely know that this is not working. So in general, the bad discovery is this one. What could be delivered in 1 day now takes at least 3 half days. So that's not precise math, or even more, because if you could not finish, then you don't feel the urgency to finish, and then it just doesn't really go anywhere. So what did I do? I checked for alternatives. Can we do anything better than this? And this is what I found. Basically nothing. The thing that we could compare our approach to ended up being like, well, the dysfunctional meeting only on Zoom, which suffered for all the same problem that we had. It was even more dysfunctional. It was just happening on Zoom without visual support, without mirror, without any surface. It was just like people discussing about the same thing with some cats running on the keyboard and many other possible interactions. So it was still better than the alternatives, but yeah, only it didn't feel that great as it used to be in presence. Still, we had commitment, so we need to keep crafting it and improving it. So what we started doing on ourselves was basically redesigning our processes. Like I had the company that is a perfect guinea pig. Like I basically started the company so that I can prove that my ideas are actually working. So I'm not asking anybody permission to run experiment on me and my colleagues. Well, I will ask permission for some experiments to my colleague. I'm not that mad scientist type of person, but I like to do what I'm preaching. So we actually used EventStorming to start redesigning our processes because, well, we organize physical trainings and then we switched to online trainings, which was great on some parts, which is we didn't need to rent any room, we didn't need to look for travel and so on, but it was a mess on many other areas. Like we had to start injecting automation in the preparation of Zoom meetings and Slack channels and mirror boards and all the other things, and doing technical tech check. And we basically redesign all of our processes for not for sales, but for delivery and preparation and feedback collection and many other things. And well, that kind of worked. Like we discovered what we missed, we had a good plan, and we had a good level of execution. So, well, kind of happy with that. I got a new tech stack. This is actually exactly where I'm standing right now with a slightly different type of mess, but that's more or less what it is. And so what you can see, a big, large screen, stand-up desk, the single improvement that made the difference. I'm still standing. That's how I sound so kind of active in some way. I had to buy a new laptop because the old one was overheating every time I was using Miro and Zoom together. I guess many of you have the same problem. I had to buy a new microphone, high resolution camera, and well, new light, not to look like Nosferatu during the Zoom calls. And yes, I'm happy because all of these things is making a difference, but I'm also pretty sad because this is making too much of a difference. So the little map of what we discovered about the tech stack is actually this one. The effect of the technical stack was way more than we wanted to be. So the only unavoidable thing is actually the limit of the single conversation bandwidth, which means only one person is talking at the same time. There is a little bit of awkwardness if two people are talking at the same time, maybe with a little bit of delay if you're working with people in the United States or at the other side of the world, so the distance is in milliseconds becomes getting sensible. And yes, you're missing something, but bad microphone, the cracking sound, your brain labeling people as annoying because of the cracking sound of their voice, the low internet speed, the empathy between people is actually gone. I had a lot of meetings, the people had the camera switched off, and I realized every single time I was finishing the meeting with my brain labeling this person like, oh, what a jerk, what, you know, find your own insult for this, is, well, actually this person had the camera off. And this connection was really, really strong. I made the experiment. Another group was ready to another difficult workshop, say, could we please have everybody the camera on? And it started really weird because after seeing the face of the people on the other side, I totally didn't like the face. And I was feeling like, oh, come on, this is gonna be even worse. Then we actually had fun. We managed to have some empathy with the person whose voice was annoying, whose face was annoying, and then we had a good workshop. So the video is actually needed to have some empathy with the other people. Or if you don't have this, your brain is consuming energy because you're trying not to label people badly, but still some part of your brain will do. And but the annoying thing is actually the third one in the bottom. I found this horrible gap, like consultants were buying expensive hardware in order to perform well on this new technological stack. A lot of employees were stuck on the provided tech stack. And all of this bad microphone, low internet speed, and no double screen is not that much money, but is making a massive effect in terms of empathy and in terms of Zoom fatigue on everybody. And this difference is actually really, really annoying. This is just a matter of money, and the gap between consultants and employees is widening. I mean, this is, I would not expect this class separation effect, but it's happening and it's annoying. Another thing to add on the platter is actually, I used a lot Daniel Kahneman, thinking fast and slow. This is also the thing behind the bullshit asymmetry principle. It's just a very short summary of what Nobel Prize Daniel Kahneman actually wrote in this book. But using the Kahneman abstraction of system 1, pattern matching, quick reasoning, and system 2, more expensive logic reasoning, but using a lot more energy, we are forcing our brain to continuously switch on the system 2 to solve the issues of the tech stack, of people not looking at the camera, having the camera in a different place and looking like they are ignoring you while they are actually looking at you, and many other things. Your brain is compensating, and this is exhausting. So it just makes us feel that every single online workshop is an brain energy management exercise. The single most important currency of an organization, of a workshop designer, is your brain energy that gets depleted sooner in Zoom call. That's the currency. It used to be time. Now I think this is the most important currency inside your organization and inside any workshop. So in terms of energy management, 3 hours is the maximum achievable. No final sprint. There is no wait, oh, let's try to finish this. It doesn't work. People won't remember. People, they're looking for food, oxygen, or just relax, and multiple sessions are needed. Finally, asynchronous contribution. What if we just get rid of the Zoom calls and let people do something in the meanwhile? We start, we sit in a big workshop, and then we let people contribute so that we can finish. We tried this. A few things that were actually interesting were the possibility of really working with an unlimited modeling space. This is the extraction of something that we've done in kicking off a startup, and it was a lot of exploration in the big picture. Then we just highlighted the 5 bounded contexts that were really relevant for the first stage of software development. But at the same time, we started also exploring different models, like we went on the business model canvas after the initial exploration on the EventStorming, validated the business on the business model canvas, get some extra information, get back to the EventStorming to tell a more sophisticated story, and then went into the process modeling only on some areas to get, a more precise mechanics of the implementation and extracting user story. The great thing about this mirror approach on limited modeling space is that while I can have everything on the same board, it was business model canvas. We were ready to use the value proposition canvas. We also had worldly mapping somewhere else. They can fit on the same board, and I've never been in a room with enough walls to visualize everything I wanted. So Miro is actually great for this, and that we are just really happy. Visible grammar, we are making it explicit what the grammar are we using in every exercise. We added later visual clues and anchors. All of these color, they will have a reference somewhere else, like the same model zoomed in will have the same colored bar, and multiple modeling perspective, not a single modeling tool on the same board. It's just seeing the same problem with different perspective, and having the 2 models in the comparable space actually feels really good. We're also doing this as a crossover collaboration between the IT team and the user experience service design team. We have the shared Miro board where we are actually posting the different views. So wireframes, customer journey, EventStorming, software diagrams, it's all there and they are related. So the links is actually visible. We can see why we are doing things, and we can see the progress of our exploration. So that's more or less what I just said. We can embrace multiple perspectives. We can use multiple boards. We can make the evolution progress visible. Our current experiment is just like I'm feeling bored with wikis, and so we try to get everything. I mean, you can easily add text on Miro, but it's not as beautiful to add big images in wikis. So well, we tried, why don't we stop using wikis and have only one Miro board with everything and then make it readable, navigable? That's a current experiment. I cannot tell you how this is going to end, but we're having fun in the process. The other thing that happened, discover as you go. We couldn't finish in one day. We dropped the idea of finishing. Do we have enough information to move on? Oh yes, that's what we need. We don't need to know the entire plan. We need to know just enough of what we need to take a decision now, have an implementation maybe in the next week, and then we get back to the model later when we need to deal with another problem. So the model stopped being finished, but started being a long-lasting reference for continuous growth. But I mentioned the problem of synchronous contribution. Means like you gotta get back to the model later. So we needed to provide meta information, like how much do you agree with the current modeling? Like sometimes the model is ugly, so looks like unfinished, but that's all you need to have. Other times the model looks beautiful, but it's not to be trusted. So we wanted to have this information visible. One of the things that we discovered is as much as you can provide a synchronous contribution, doing it by yourself, provide more events in the area that you know well, people still need to wrap up in a final conversation when everybody can talk. So you think like you might gain some time with parallel asynchronous contribution, not exactly. You can save some time, but not all the time with this thing. You still need the final conversation, which has to be synchronous, to have people, well, listen their own voice, be heard, and get contradiction and validation. People don't feel validated if this is happening asynchronously. They just need to feel like, yes, I agree, and they need to listen. Other thing that we can play, stratification, copy and move became our standard. We started having visible timelines of the board, not only one board seeing the final result, but all the steps to get there. You just make a copy, move it away, and lock it, and then you can move on. Other things that we do, okay, we have a validated flow. We can add one more layer with a different meaning, like which steps are making you happy, which steps are delivering money and revenues, which who are the person interested in this area of the flow. This became basically our recipe. I had a recipe for the in-person workshop that was more or less a sequence with possible variation. The recipe that we started having for the online version is a sequence of trial and error, small time boxed experiment. Let's try dropping the events, only 5 minutes. Let's see something. Okay, now I see. Now I need the structure for this event. A few minutes to start putting frames. Okay, now I see that maybe we need to highlight which are the key pivotal events ending the flow in the boxes. Okay, 5 minutes for that. And then, well, we add more things. We don't know if the experiments are going in the right direction. We are making bets. These bets are time boxed, 5 minutes, and then we see what is going to be next. One thing that we do a lot is we don't make decision. We actually kill every attempt to make a collaborative decision along the way. We just do things and eventually correct them if they are wrong. But we never try to agree on something before the action. That really speeds up operation. But where we want to get is on top of the validated narrative, where everybody then agrees of we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we get in touch with this system and blah, blah, blah. When we have this, then we can play value-added layers like visualize the value, visualize the interest, political involvement in a given area, problems and opportunities, voting, and so on. The whole idea, once again, is the recipe is a sequence of small time-boxed experiments, and we need some chaos to understand exactly what is the next move. We are still injecting precision along the way, but step by step. Summary, incomplete is the new default state. We never have complete documentation. I just dropped the idea. I tried for an entire year to complete a workshop and I didn't succeed. But did we have enough information to be actionable? Oh, yes. We just didn't complete the whole. Okay, but we saw the structure of the whole. We know exactly that if we need to explore the other boxes, well, we can just repeat the process in another session. But do we need it right now? No, we have to focus on the problem we just discovered, which turned out to be the important one. So we dropped finishing, but we are still actionable. The current state for the big picture, we redesign business line. Yes. We redesign our workshop format. Yes, and still evolving. We design startups. Yes. We transform our organization. Yes. So, well, I'm feeling quite happy. Is EventStorming the same? No. It is still working. Yes. So that's more or less where we are. Summary, takes more time. Digital divide. Unlimited modeling space provides a lot of option. Asynchronous is useful, but people needs to be heard. And that's a business opportunity for all of us, I guess. There's a massive hole in collaborative strategic decision making. People are just running dysfunctional meetings on Zoom, which is depleting brain energy faster. So corporate decision that used to be dumb in a physical world, they are now dumber in the remote world. Well, good luck. And some other things in terms of facilitation, the digital divide is putting more weight on the facilitator. So one thing that we saw happening a lot was facilitator in a real physical workshop should not do much, just like provide the rules and then be there helping people and so on. But people are familiar with stickies and markers. But fluency with Miro, it just happened on in one workshop, very young company. Everybody in the room was kind of 20 years younger than me, and they were really, really fluent in Miro. It happened only once. Every other workshop, a lot of people were struggling with mouse controlling Miro and so on. So what you do? Facilitator, maybe facilitators, one of them needs to be a scribe. So it's going to be, well, I will take over the fluency with Miro. You talk, you tell me the story, I will make it visible. And it's not the same thing as physical event storming, but well, that's the way it works. Facilitator need to do a little more. What about the other format? And one of the things that we discovered is exactly because of this shift on the facilitator is we started injecting this format a little bit earlier. Actually, I said we, I could say I. I was in a few workshops. People didn't know about EventStorming. It was the first time, still they enjoyed it. We started validating the story, but I was going to be the scribe anyway. And so, well, I'm typing faster. I know the notation. Well, look, I'm using a more sophisticated notation. I'm asking you a couple of extra questions here while doing this, but I'm not slowing you down because I'm actually quite fast on this grammar. So we ended up using a more sophisticated notation earlier because, well, maybe we were not going to run another workshop. So the quality of the exploration actually ended up being a little bit better, only with a little bit more intervention from the facilitation. One of the things, this is actually a typical board for this one. The surroundings of the area that we're modeling are just scratched. The color has not been changed to the official notation. The stickies are usually larger. For some reason, nobody's writing small stickies on Miro. Everybody's making stickies larger than the other people in an escalation like the Cold War style. But that's how it looks. Like a couple of bounded contexts are analyzed in deep with policies and commands and events, and the surroundings is just, well, there's some other stuff. We're going to talk about it later. But the core processes are validated with sophisticated grammar. And the grammar instead, well, a little bit, this is the grammar that I'm talking about. The process modeling, this is what we are using to model the conversation. So from the left, we can see read models and or UI. This is the information that we look at to take a given decision. So you might actually read it aloud. We do it in workshop. Like a person is given this decision according to the read model, the thing that I see, maybe the price and the picture of a given item. It will turn into a decision like add item to cart. It will be on a system, maybe the e-commerce website. It will trigger an event like, well, item added to cart. Sometimes this event is making people feel happy, sometimes the opposite. We're actually visualizing this mood with emojis. So yes, emojis as first-class citizen, and I am 50, so that's really disturbing in itself. But they work better than any other notation. So emojis are part of the EventStorming grammar now. And then an event just like gets digested to a policy. A policy is triggered by the word whenever. And some policy are just like happening as automation, like whenever you actually submit the order, you receive a confirmation email. You don't expect the person to be typing this email. But in other cases, the event might be triggering a human response. So you want to visualize the person, the actor here, like whenever this happens, somebody has to remember to do this. That is the grammar. We actually use this grammar as a repetition flow. It's not sophisticated, it's not UML, it's not BPMN, but the structure is mandatory and designed as a game. So that's what the way we are doing it. We do this during validation. Facilitator is having a couple of more responsibilities being described. And yes, process modeling gets introduced early. I actually already told about it. The other version is process modeling standalone. It will give you more precise commitment. That's a place where you can also play more sophisticated. We did split and merge sometimes. We use breakout rooms. We had people in different teams doing the modeling separately, and then we compare the things. Actually, we've done it in a multinational company where teams in different nations said our model is different, then they explored, and then we compared the models. The models were very, very similar, just with a different language. And but we couldn't have an agreement about those models being the same at the beginning. That was actually beautiful. And this once again, that's a longer term artifact. That's something that we can keep. So in terms of outcome of the process modeling, it just works like a charm to design new businesses. We are really happy about it. And we both in starting from scratch, both in redesigning the old ones. The thing that is interesting here, and the reason that justify our grammar, is that you see exactly what needs to change. And I use this violet purple color because the only thing that needs to change is actually the policies. And the major advantage of the process modeling grammar is it forces people to have a conversation on the areas that are more problematic in requirements gathering, because this is where the business won't tell the whole story in the first conversation. This is where people will tell you lies, even with the best intention. This is where the business is going to evolve. So your conversation that happened 3 months ago now is completely outdated. Well, not completely. It's going to be outdated in the policies. People will have to change the policies and not the steps. It's the glue between the steps which is important. And we are focusing on this one. So that is actually really, really interesting. Talking about the software design, the final grammar. I know I'm slightly late, but that's going to be short. The problem is more or less the same that we have on process modeling, but here is stated in a bolder way. How to make specialists with different backgrounds cooperate towards a common goal. That is actually the final goal of an EventStorming session. The best session are with the business expert and the software people. I had fantastic session with people whose profession was so far away from mine, and we were not sitting at the same table, touching stickies on the same wall, or on the same board in Miro. I mean, one of the most interesting was working with a hospital in California with nurses and doctors, and we modeled a new flow for patient acceptance and triage and so on. And it was awesome. We felt like we were doing the right thing, and it was happening under our eyes. How to make this happen? The great idea that I still use it is cooperative games. They are a special breed of games where you're not competing against the other players, you're together with the other players against the board, the table, and so on. And this is not an original idea. I actually learned it from Alistair Coburn, well, 20 years ago, but it just forces people to get in this game mode and try to win the modeling battle by following the rules. And these are the rules of the game. They're not that complicated. Every path should be completed, so we're gonna get into a stable state. The item should be purchased and delivered. The payment should have been completed. That's more or less what we are expecting. The color grammar should be respected. We saw the color grammar. Every stakeholder should be reasonably happy. That's why we have emojis, and every hotspot should be addressed, which means we start with a very rough model. We usually start from the baseline flow, and then, oh, you forgot this, put it in a hotspot. You forgot that, add another hotspot. What if the customer has a brother? Add another hotspot. And then once the baseline is completed, we start addressing every hotspot and then making the solution robust also for the corner cases. I mean, this is not rocket science. That's another idea I stole. I think I stole it from Kent Beck, the to-do list in the TDD book. But yes, it actually works really, really well in collaborative modeling. And a flow like this, it used to look just like this. We could see candidate aggregates like the purchase, the seat, the ticket, the seat, and the purchase. And now it's looking a little bit more like this in Miro, or we can see the hotspot. Like, this is not completely having a solution, but we are following the grammar. Like there's a blue, there's a yellow, there's a big pivotal event, sales open, which gets listened to a policy that triggers a command that goes to another aggregate, which triggers an event, which is listened from another policy, and so on. That's the way we're designing. Actually, this is possibly even pre-pandemic, because internally we were already doing something. Well, given the architecture, we might get into something even more sophisticated. This grammar that we use was for a system where the architectural decision was already taken, and it was CQRS, event sourcing. And so we had the projections and the read model, and the black stickies are, well, just for test. The test that we had, actually there's one policy which is not tested, and this should be corrected really soon. So from this formulation of the flow, we ended up having this grammar instead. Why this grammar as a rule of the game? Because this is forcing people to actually have a conversation in building a model according to this constraint. Wait a minute, I'm talking about the model. People would like to build the software. I need to settle this little friction, because there is not a one-to-one strict correspondence between the stickies and the software. It's pretty close, but it's not mandatory. I'm not optimizing the software architecture. I'm optimizing the conversation around the software, making the conversion to the software, well, really obvious in some cases, sometimes trivial, but a lot of people still would like to have one-to-one correspondences between one sticky, one class. Well, now you're not going to have this. You can have something which is making this translation obvious, but it's part of the collaborative game. If you want to keep this conversation as close as possible to the business, we need to leave away a little bit of the software-oriented precision. The conversation is more important than every single bit of precision. And this is the hot areas. Okay, how do I get from this to software? And that's a recipe. One thing that we do is it takes actually 10 minutes to extract user stories from a flow like this. It's really trivial. The moment we highlight the emoji for the delivered value, hey, that's exactly the boundary for a user story. We're making somebody happy. We are visualizing the goal of somebody. So from one command to one emoji, well, that's basically a user story. And we write the user story as card in Miro, and we extract them, put them in a backlog. It really takes seconds. It's embarrassingly easy. So, well, let's do this. We were really happy. Talking about the relationship with BDD testing, well, we do it a lot. Give an event, we have all the precondition with the pre-events, and we have them on the left. And when we have a trigger that maps with the command, then we expect to have events and read models. Why both? Well, because the event is putting the system in a stable state, but it's not making the stakeholder happy. Well, basically, the stakeholder is not listening to logs, so the system could be in the right state, but stakeholder doesn't know. Stakeholder knows that the system is in the right state only by looking at the read models. So we ended up testing in this way. Given events, when trigger, then I'm expecting these events, and I'm expecting to see a visible outcome in the read models. Sometimes we might even skip the then events if it's implicit in the read models, so that we don't need to be event-oriented also in the test. But other times it actually gets better to visualize all the steps. What about wireframes? It was really weird, because there was a lot of discussion, like, could we include wireframes in EventStorming discussion? Well, why not? It was part of the original formulation, and the only thing we wanted is just like, you gotta be quick. So we had very good session with a few friends that were good in making wireframes on the fly. So why wasting time with read models? We have somebody actually making sketch on the fly. That's awesome. But we also had not so good experiences if, oh, we already have the wireframes, let me upload them for you, and then you find out that something is not matching the current narrative. Oh, but these are the wireframes we already decided with the business a couple of weeks ago. That's not the discovery I want. So just I would like to have fluency. That's and that's the only main requirement. The other thing, which is disturbing for somebody, I would like to prototype really, really quickly. Like, yeah, I finished the workshop. I would like the people to get out, disconnect from Zoom. I need some food. And the second thing after food is coffee. After the coffee, I would like to start writing code. And but then I asked some people in a large company, what would you need after a workshop like this? I said, like, another series of meeting. And I was, why another series of meeting? I see the solution. Don't you want to see the solution working? And it felt like we really have something really different. For me, it was, I can see a lot of things in the sticky notes flow. The only thing I don't see is the working code. So I really need to go prototyping at least to see if I forgot anything. But that's the way it works. Like every single modeling tool, coding, testing, prototyping, wireframing, EventStorming is providing only a bit of feedback, but not the whole feedback. The real feedback, you can get it only from a combination of the whole. And that's exactly what the core of the domain-driven design Whirlpool model. You need to change modeling tool in order to have feedback. But what I wanted to say is just that is my suggestion, my recipe, and I'm not normal. I am this domain-driven design practitioner with 35 years of coding experience, running my own company. So I am my boss. I am my product owner. If I do some stupid idea in coding, well, I just need to have a meeting with me, a weird one, but I usually agree with me. Or I tell myself that I am stupid, but I cannot fire me. I am the business owner. I am the product owner. I am the lead architect, and I'm also the user of this stuff. So I accept my own mistakes. Can you make it a recipe for you? I think no. So the thing is, what is actually working for you? Which are the hidden constraints between a good exploration session and delivering working code? And these are some of the things that were missing from the picture. In many times, people were asking me the question, begging for an answer, and then I cannot give you a good answer for your scenario. Like, did your team join the modeling session? And they said, like, oh, we haven't hired them. Okay, so of course you cannot go from EventStorming to code. You don't have the developers, and they missed the session. So, do you need intermediate documentation? I don't. I just code is what I need. Maybe after the fact documentation, yes. But why do we need it? Maybe regulation, maybe habits. Well, how many companies are involved? Are people working in the same team? Are there contract boundaries? How much time between exploration and implementation? This backfired on us. Like, we ran a workshop, we understood everything, we felt like we were going to start developing the following week, and then we had 6 months of political stop of the operation. When we started, we actually didn't forget many things, but people didn't feel like they remembered. So at the end, it was more or less the same thing. And then we rediscovered things. Okay, we knew about them, but we couldn't guarantee this. And well, and then the embarrassing question: how good is your team? I can play with a team of full stack developers that are very, very experienced. And maybe the question is coming from a person from a company making money out of junior developers. And of course, you cannot play with the same rules. Our profession is not always the same, even if the job title is similar. So I'm really actually getting close to the summary. I might know this part of the puzzle, EventStorming and domain-driven design, but a lot of clusters are in the other side of the puzzle. Like, what is your domain, skills, people, project size, and process? So you shouldn't ask me the question, you should ask your team the question. Given what we just learned in this EventStorming exploration, what do you think is missing? What do you really need to start delivering the code? Is there any intermediate step that you should take? Why? Maybe you can remove one and realize that you don't need it anymore. The question is the actual challenge, like what is the thing that you really need? And the thing that actually worked in many places was, okay, we run the EventStorming, let's try to force ourselves to deliver the prototype on this. What do we really need? Which are the intermediate steps which are really useful? Are they giving us anything? And then, well, we can actually get away some steps, and we feel that there were a lot of redundancies in the existing process because it was designed not for the learning, but to have the steps in between, and maybe a conversation could have been better. In general, that's where we are. Every tool should prove itself useful, including EventStorming. So, summary, I realize I've told quite a lot of things, so the summary is going to be short. Thing is, keep experimenting. Well, the reality has changed, and then we're going to get back to some hybrid reality. Keep experimenting, and not a single thing is guaranteed to work anymore. So, but dedication, trying to make things work, actually was a really good ingredient for a lot of things. Second thing, be honest. Same underline, not a single thing is guaranteed to work. But in this year of experimentation, I realized that being brutally honest in saying something like, we are just trying to make things work. This is still experimental. We are prototyping with this. Are you ready to take the challenge? Well, they were, and then we had pretty good result in the process. The final recommendation, which is something like rabbit out of the hat, is remote doesn't mean forced to be digital. These were the sketch notes that I put on my flip chart right here. One of the most horrible consequences of being forced to work remotely is just a lot of people thought like, so my work is going to be typing or scrolling on the keyboard or the mouse all the time. No, it's still, your brain is still smarter if you use markers and papers, and so you don't have to stop this. And that is my final slide, and I realize I overrun a lot, and that's one of the downsides for remotely, maybe proving my point unintentionally. There are a few references for this, for the thing that I talk about, but I promised Seb that the last slide was about the state of my book. So in 2021, a situation is the book is still in progress. Most of the content is actually 300 pages, was written in the pre-COVID world. And since this was not finished, I'm now facing the challenge of having to rewrite the book, adding content for the pandemic and the forced remote scenario. I already added a few chapters and extra information, but I'm going for the record of being the first book whose second edition is going to be published before the first. That's where I am right now. And that's it. So I will stop presenting and
Thank you, Alberto. As Alberto correctly observed, he ran a little bit longer than he was expecting to. However, we do have time for some questions. There is one question lined up, and I'll ask Simon to ask it in just a second. But if anybody does have a question that they would like to ask, either type it into the question box or click the raise hand button, and I will come and ask you to vocalize it. So first off, Simon, you should now be able to unmute yourself. And would you care to ask Alberto your question?
Sure. Firstly, thank you very much for a very energetic presentation. It was much fun to watch. Really enjoyed it. I too started using Miro at the start of the lockdown. I'm a business analyst, and I felt like I had my hands chopped off as soon as I couldn't actually get into the same room with my stakeholders. 350 employees at People's Postcode Lottery were working at home within 2 weeks. So we had to very quickly come up with some ideas of how to interact. We started using Miro as well. My question is about those stakeholders that can't seem to get the hang of Miro. The tool set is a little bit frustrating for them. Have you thought about any ways around it? Have you thought about suggesting people have some minimal training before your sessions, or do you do any training yourself on the actual use of the tools?
Yes. So one of the things which is part of it, we do many steps. So for trainings and also workshop, private workshop, we do something like a technical setup. So we gotta make sure that people are, well, at the beginning was also familiar with Zoom. Now everybody is, but Miro is still, dangerous based. So we offer something like 30 minutes trial experimenting with this. We make the board accessible with some toy area before the workshop, and it works for a very small minority of people. So it just makes us feel like good person because we are providing the opportunity, but still most of people don't use it. So the next thing that we do is during the workshop, we start at a very slow pace. And one of the activities that we do at the beginning is something like build your own business card with Miro. So with stickies, put a picture of yourself, add some free text, maybe an emoji with the flag of your nation, and something funny. So instead of having the introduction, we have 10 minutes of struggling with Miro on something which is not really challenging business-wise. And it's just like helping a few people to be familiar with this, but it's not solving the problem. It's just like relieving a little bit of stress, getting away with the basics. And also it helps us to understand which are the ones which are struggling most. So maybe we need to provide an extra help for those. The other thing that we do before getting in a real workshop, we do 20 minutes of a fake workshop. We run stories, something like Cinderella, the Three Little Pigs, or so something which is really business stress-free. We make it work. We explore the workshop dynamics in this way, and yes, it does help. I mean, in the physical world, I had something like a 3 minutes kickoff, sometimes 1 minute kickoff. Hello, I'm Alberto. We're gonna spend the whole day putting sticky notes on the wall. Let's start this way. Well, wait a minute. Well, yes, presentation, but I was really getting into the action quickly. I'm not doing this anymore. So something like 30 minutes of the workshop, 30-40 minutes of the workshop at the beginning is actually spent in getting on everybody on speed with Miro. Is this working? Not exactly. For some people, yes. Then I will be the scribe helping the one which cannot keep the pace anyway. So the message is, in one workshop you won't deliver this, but we found that a lot of companies actually started using Miro because they found the benefit in the activity, but it's not happening in a single workshop. In one workshop, you gotta be slow. And this also tells you that you have 45 precious minutes less in your workshop. And but if you offer the time for the preparation, people are not gonna be taking it because they won't see the problem because they have to face it before they face it. And then somebody's gonna be frustrated. But that's a better trade-off that we had. See the people, help them. Many of them could be helped. A few of them could be not. Okay, I'm gonna be your scribe if you need. A second thing that we started using as actually as part of this backup, where we could be with one facilitator, well, it's actually better to be 2 or even maybe 3. Because of this, like somebody might be there to talk and then somebody might just be there to type very quickly. I actually slow down a lot of workshop because of my typos, and I can't live seeing my typo, so I have to correct it, and maybe somebody else could be faster in this.
Thanks, Alberto.
Thank you.
Ranga, I'm not sure whether you actually have a question to ask. I'll unmute you. Ranga, do you have a question that you would like to ask Alberto? I think not. You would need to unmute yourself, Ranga, if you would like to ask the question.
There is no question. I'm only appreciating his presentation. It's really good and interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. So then it looks like I get to ask a question because no one else is asking questions. So you said towards the end that the remote way of working had led you to accept that the workshop would be incomplete.
Yep.
And I just want to challenge you. Did you think that when you did it in person, the workshops used to be complete? I mean, they finished, but did they get to be more complete because they were in person?
The thing that was happening was we are in the same room. So there is an extra constraint, like somebody might be taking the plane later. Is today or never, which is creating a great framing for the workshop. 20 people in the same room. There is no distraction. Distraction is shut off because everybody is in the physical world, and people are not phoning each other because actually all the people on the two sides of the phone are in the same room. So no interruptions. And this is creating a great place for a lot of group efficiency. And also there's a lot of eye contact. Like if somebody's starting to feel in a hurry, like, oh, come on, we're never gonna finish. Then you look around, yes, I get this message. And this looking around is lost. So even if you feel like we are going slow, you have no way to communicate with the other audience with the body language. And maybe somebody's watching at you and feeling this pressure. Other people, they only have one screen and they're just looking at mirror. And even myself, like I have two screens and sometimes two screens plus the iPad. But even if I'm curious about the eye contact and the body language, sometimes I just look at the board and I realize I'm missing signals. And one more thing is, for the facilitator, it's really hard to stop conversations. So, you know, sometimes you touch some areas which are making people angry, or they just want to discuss. But in the physical world, it just can go step in and say, like, yeah, well, come on, guys, yeah, let's just put the sticky note and be happy. And I have no way of getting in the middle remotely. I mean, I just get as close as possible to the camera, but it doesn't have the same effect. And I was in one place, like two people arguing for 20 minutes, and I didn't know how to stop them. I was curious. I wanted to see the end of it, but I was also, yeah, I'm supposed to be the facilitator. How I cannot shout. I cannot, yeah, wait. There's nothing that could stop them. They were not seeing me. I also had the opposite. I had another place where during the presentation, I didn't realize that my camera was still on, and the presentation was so crappy, and my face was, no. And looks like everybody saw me, and well, they didn't like it. But I was honest. That was my face, and the presentation was ugly. And
cool.
But yes, you don't have this. There's one more thing that you lose, which is imitation. So it's easy to start the moment you have somebody putting things on the wall. Oh, this is what you do. Everybody's doing it. But it's very hard to imitate other human beings on Zoom and Miro, because you don't see what they are actually doing, and it takes a little bit more. So the effect of, is everybody doing the same thing? You're missing it. Group commitment, implicit messaging. This is gone, or becomes a lot more complicated, and there is not a single effect which is accelerating you. Every single thing is making you slower, so you never finish.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a comment from Christophe Debove, who says, maybe the third version of your book, you haven't, you know, your work, first is not published, second one is on its way. Maybe the third version of your book will be about event storming with virtual reality. And we have a gentleman called Bill Nicol who would like to ask a question. Bill, could you unmute yourself and ask Alberto your question?
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the things that came across to me the way you were talking was engagement is incredibly important, and also facilitating people to take part, because the answers you're looking for may not come from your experts. It may come from somebody else within a group or the organization who you wouldn't have thought about, and it seems that you're taking that very, very seriously. And your next book may be, in fact, using the holograms rather than peaches. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I will leave you with this little trick. Like, one of the most efficient tricks in EventStorming modeling, but also in general, is I do agree with what you said. I'm looking for the feedback of everybody, and one of the best way to get feedback is to be the idiot in the room saying something which is particularly wrong. So when I try to be the narrator, so this is, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then they know that I don't know their business, and they feel sometimes insulted, and they stop me like, no, we don't do things in this way, we do this instead. Then I get a tsunami of explanation in my face. I just need to be quick putting everything on stickies or typing it on Miro. But sometimes I feel like, well, sorry for correcting you. And I was, no, that was my honeypot. It's my trap. I try to say things because then this is making you feel like, no, that's not the way we do things. So in the real world, I hate being corrected. But during the workshop, I get paid for this, and this is very efficient. And we just doing this in a project. We just our collaboration with another team. I sent a letter to my boss saying like, look, we are just showing everything that we are intended to do. We are just making it visible for the other team. It's gonna be a honeypot like that. It's gonna make for them incredibly easy to make us feel like we are idiots. Like, well, why are you calling this API? You should call this and this and this instead. That's exactly what we want, clarification. How to get this looking like stupid in the process works like a charm. If you're protected politically, and yes, that's people will make you feel like you're an idiot for free. Well, that's exactly what I want. And that's how you get a lot of reaction during the workshop. And even if I have this t-shirt like I'm always right or something like this, I just forgot. I don't wear this t-shirt remotely for some reason. And it's actually being vocally wrong that triggers reaction. And every single state in the workshop is wrong, 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 wrong. Oh, now it feels good. We don't try to make things right from the beginning. We just try to make things visibly wrong, and then everybody feel like they have the duty to improve the model and to correct it. And then it becomes a collective operation, and the correct model is just an artifact built by, oh, I just formed a team in the process, and that actually feels great. But you need to look like an idiot in the process. I accepted it, and it works well.
And you do a great job of it, Alberto.
Thank you. You waited for this.
So we don't have any more questions. So I would like to thank Alberto for spending the time with us this evening. Thank you very much, Alberto.
My pleasure.
And despite the fact we've been all making jokes about first, second, and third edition of Alberto's book, as a purchaser of the first edition of his book, I can tell you that the version that's on LeanPub, even though it's marked as incomplete, is still the most complete reference to EventStorming that you will find anywhere, and it's a really good read. So if you're interested in finding more about EventStorming and you feel like EventStorming could be useful for you, actually the incomplete first edition of the book is well worth a read. And of course, because it's LeanPub, any updates that Alberto gets around to making will be available to you to download as well. So thank you very much, Alberto. This talk and these slides will go on to the BCS website, and I'll buy you a drink next time I see you.
I hope so.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks very much, and goodbye.
I'll see you. Thank you very much. My pleasure to everybody.